You've worked and invested your whole life, so it's finally time to retire and enjoy it. Here's the $2.3 million that you have to live off of. But before I give you this money that you've worked really hard for, I actually need to take half of it. And the reason for that is because you've worked with me over the past 40 years, and you promised me that you were going to pay me half of your money. Now, you might think that this isn't fair. If I take all of that money and leave you with this, then you can't retire yet. You're going to have to either continue working for quite a few more years to make up for this loss, or you can retire with way less money, which is going to add an insane amount of stress to your life. This is exactly what happens to millions of average investors every single year when it comes to the fees that they pay when investing. But the reason most don't realize it is because instead of paying a fee as a lump sum at the very end, like this example, it's being slowly siphoned out of your account every month or every year like a leaky faucet. Over time, those fees add up to an astronomical amount of money. In this video, I'm going to show you how different fees will not only cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars, but also force you to have to work a lot more years than you actually have to. After watching this video, you should be able to look through your 401k, Roth IRA, 403b, 457, or your financial advisor and see how much everything is really costing you. I can sit here with a straight face and promise you that this video could save you or your loved ones literally hundreds of thousands of dollars. I cannot stress that enough. I've got to give credit to the man who made this video possible, Jack Bogle, because he taught me how important fees actually are. This man used to constantly warn people about the true cost of fees. Where I think a lot of people get caught up is not understanding how the total cost of fees is calculated. To use a very basic example, let's use a 2% annual fee for assets under management. If you invested $1,000 at a 7% return, then in 10 years, that money would have grown to a little under $1,700 after paying $267 in fees over that time. This isn't so obvious to our human brains though, because it's not like we're handing over $267 in cash to pay for the service. In the case of an ETF or mutual fund, the fee is being taken out through adjusting the net asset value of what you invested in. On top of this, the cost is technically more than $267 for the example that we just went through. The reason is because we need to calculate the opportunity cost of you not being able to invest that money and add it to the initial $267 fee. The opportunity cost in this example is an additional $92, because if you would have instead invested the $267 fee over those 10 years, then at the same rate of return, it would have grown to $359. Once we account for the 2% annual fee plus the opportunity cost, you've actually paid 18% in fees, not 2%. Since most of you will invest way more than $1,000 over your lifetime, you can see how this $359 fee can turn into an even larger amount that you pay in fees. Fees come in all different shapes and sizes. Some are based on a percentage of assets and others are based on a flat fee. Let's first look at the fees associated with something like a robo-advisor, as well as different funds like ETFs, index funds, and mutual funds. Then we'll move on to our favorite people, financial advisors, where I was a little surprised at what I found. You'll usually see the fees for different funds range from as low as 0.03% for index funds to as high as a little under 1% for actively managed funds. Here's the reduction in value after 10 years of investing in a fund with these expense ratios. Here's the reduction after 20 years, 30 years, and 40 years. What makes it even worse is that most actively managed funds underperform a basic index fund, so not only are you losing money that way, but also through the high fees as well. The good news is that if you've been investing in any of these high fee funds for less than 10 years, then you still have time to get out without too much damage done. To fully understand the damage high fees cause, we should look at this data in a way that our human brains can easily understand. The first is in total dollar amount lost. We're going to assume someone invests $1,000 per month at a 7% average annual return. After 10 years, the blue bar is how much the investor has, and the gray bar is how much was paid in fees, including opportunity cost. After 20 years, the fees for the two actively managed funds are really starting to catch up. up. After 30 years, we're starting to get to the point where what was paid in fees to the actively managed funds could basically buy a home here in the Midwest. And hold your breath, because after 40 years of investing in these types of funds, this is how much you would have paid in fees. If you would have just swapped those actively managed funds with that low-cost 0.03% index fund, then you could afford this beautiful new $550,000 home in the Columbus, Ohio area. If you want to help support my dog Molly and this channel for zero fees, then hit that thumbs up button and share the video with someone that you think needs to see it. I want to show you these fees lost in one more way to really help you understand how it's going to crush your financial security in retirement. We're going to take the chunk of money you'd pay in fees by the end of 10, 20, 30, and 40 years, then use the 4% rule to figure out how much less you'll be able to spend in retirement based on that safe withdrawal rate. If you pay any of these fees for 10 years, then this is how much less you'll be able to live on in retirement per year. As I said before, the first 10 years don't look outrageous. $484 per year is pretty insignificant. After 20 years, it's starting to climb a lot. Being able to spend $2,700 less per year in retirement is the difference between you being able to take a nice, relaxing vacation on the beach every year and you having to dump sand in your backyard to play pretend. 30 years is where it gets really gross. $9,100 for one of those expensive, actively managed funds? I spend a lot less than that per year on my mortgage payment, for crying out loud. That $408 per year for the index fund is looking really nice right about now. And finally, after 40 years, we're starting to get to numbers that cannot be ignored. I don't know what I'd spend $24,000 on per year, but I sure as heck wouldn't want to lose out on that money every single year because I just had to invest in an underperforming actively managed fund. As I'll continue to say until I am blue in the face, fees always have and always will matter, so you want to keep them low whenever possible. Do not let anyone ever try to convince you otherwise. Before we go through the cost of a financial advisor, I want to throw this one in real quick to show you how costly a flat fee can also be using two very popular and what I would consider to be predatory companies. The Stash and Acorns investing app is what we're going to use for this example. If you don't know, these apps are basically geared more towards new beginning investors, which is probably how they're able to get away with the shenanigans that they've got going on. They charge a low $3 per month or $36 per year. Seems pretty harmless, right? Nope, not at all. This means that the more you have invested with them, the less you'll pay in fees. And on the other hand, the less that you have invested, the more that you'll pay in fees. Since these apps are geared more towards newer investors, it can be assumed that most account balances are generally low, which is pretty concerning. So I did some digging for as much public info as I could and found that they have about 8.2 million users and $4.7 billion in assets under management. I'm sure not all of them are active, but let's just assume that most of them are because it's going to give us a general idea of the fees people are paying. With those numbers, the average account balance would be $573. To be generous, I'm going to bump it up to $650 per account. At that amount, the yearly fee comes out to 5.5%. This, my friends, is how you take advantage of naive investors and profit off of them. This example is one of many in this video that is essentially legal highway robbery. Friends, do not let friends use Acorns or Stash, period. Before we get into how much financial advisors really cost you, in the description I'll have a link to some free tools where you can calculate your net worth as well as a retirement planner. When you use them, it does help support the channel, so thank you in advance. Now let's talk about the fees charged by financial advisors, planners, or whatever other names they're going by. They're all different because they do different things, but nothing changes when it comes to how much you're paying in fees. So we're going to focus more on that. I'm going to put on screen the cost of all of the fees we've talked about so far, plus if an advisor charges 1, 1.5, or 2% per year over a 10-year period. Sometimes the percentage-based advisors will charge a little less as your account balance grows. But let's be honest, you're still being charged a lot of money, and they're not giving you a huge discount at the end of the day. I should also mention that what these types of advisors charge is on top of what you pay for the funds that they put you in. So if they have you invested in a ton of actively managed funds, then you can add that to your bill as well. When we take a look at the cost over 20 years, it starts to look really, really bad. Those yearly safe withdrawal losses aren't insignificant either. Think about what you could spend almost $550 per month on if you were paying someone 2% per year. At the 30-year mark, we're starting to see someone pay over $250,000 for a 1% fee and over $500,000 if an advisor is charging you just 2%. And of course, $11,000, $16,000, and $20,000 less per year you have to live off of in retirement because of these fees. If you're currently drinking anything, then please stop for a second because I don't want you to spit it out when I go through these 40-year numbers. Here's how much you're paying an advisor over 40 years if they charge you 1.5, and 2% per year. Look at this insanity. At 2%, the advisor is earning more from you than you have left for yourself, and your safe withdrawal rate amount is reduced by over $50,000 per year. At the end of the day, the question should be, what am I actually paying for if I'm working with an advisor that charges a fee based on assets under management? They can definitely bring you value, so I don't want to discount what they do. But are they really bringing you enough value to make up for the hundreds of thousands of dollars that you're paying them? If an advisor laid out numbers like this to show you their true cost, then the average investor would probably be asking a lot more questions. One of the questions might be, how would this compare to an advisor who has a different fee structure? Oh, well, it's funny that you didn't ask that question because I already did the math for you. Now, there are two different ways advisors will usually charge investors, either through the model that we just looked at, which is a percentage of assets under management, or through a flat rate fee only model. I wanted to compare the two to see if there was ever a time where it made sense cost-wise to work with one over the other. To be clear, when I say fee only advisor, I am referring to one that is a fiduciary to the investor 100% of the time. If they do not specify this and aren't willing to give it to you in writing, then that means that they are not one, and you should immediately stop talking to them and lose their number. I'm using the same inputs that we've covered so far in this video. $1,000 invested per month at an average annual return of 7% over a 10, 20, 30, and 40-year period. I first need to figure out how many hours an advisor works on client activities every year. According to a research study Michael Kitces did, here are the numbers of hours per client per year spent on client activities. I averaged them together to come up with roughly 13 hours per year per client. When it comes to how much they earn, the advisor who charged a percentage based on assets under management is obvious because we just went through all the math together. For the fee-only advisor, I found that the hourly rate ranges from $150 to $400. I took the midpoint of $275 per hour. The fee-only advisor will usually charge a one-time fee between $1,500 and $3,000 to create an initial comprehensive financial plan. I took the midpoint for this one as well, which would bring us to $2,250. Over the first 10 years, here's the total amount that you'd pay to each, as well as how much that breaks down to on an hourly basis. The hourly rate of the flat fee advisor includes the initial $2,250 broken down to the hourly level to make it easier to calculate everything. As you can see, based on these inputs, the advisor who charges a percentage based on AUM comes out to being more cost effective. This can be a little misleading though, because the one who charges a percentage probably isn't a true fiduciary. Therefore, they're not making decisions that are in your best interest 100% of the time. So for me, I still look at these numbers and I think to myself, all right, well, I still don't trust the advisor who charges a fee based on AUM anyways. At the 20-year mark is where you start to see the whole commission-based model costing the investor a lot more money. Keep in mind that if the investor invested more than $1,000 every month over that time period, then it would cost the investor a lot more money to work with a commission-based advisor versus a flat fee fiduciary advisor. 30 years is where the numbers just start to look gross if you were working with a commission-based advisor. Paying them $784 per hour on the low end versus $281 per hour just sounds wrong on so many different levels. After 40 years, the investor is paying the commission-based advisor almost $1,600 per hour on the low end versus $279 per hour. This is what legal highway robbery looks like and why Jack Bogle constantly mentioned how fees always matter. To give my very candid personal opinion, there's no way in hell that I would ever trust someone who charges a percentage-based fee. I'd also never allow any of my family members to use this type of financial professional either. I'm sure these individuals are very nice people in their personal life, but they are complete scumbags in their professional life, so this cannot be ignored. Moral of the story, buy low-cost index funds or their ETF equivalent. Self-manage if you can to keep costs low, but don't be afraid to talk to a fee-based advisor. Once again, only if they're a fiduciary 100% of the time and they're willing to give that to you in writing. Help support my dog Molly and this channel by checking out some of the free tools down in the description below. Hit that thumbs up button and share the video with someone you think needs to know it so they don't lose hundreds of thousands of dollars. Done.